More options. I gotta change this again.
What?
Why isn't that camera turning on? Jack, you're out of this.
That's fine.
It's only going to accept my. It's only going to accept my.
That's fine. Let's hang out and learn a little bit.
All right.
Am I still on the camera?
Nope. Okay. It's only my.
Your voice?
Yep.
Okay. I'll just sit around and it works out for me. Can I grab something to drink?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want anything?
No, I'm good. Turn that off. I'm going live, so shut that off or go in the other room. You're fine. I'm not live yet. 2, 1. Boom. Thumbnail. I'm up and live. Let's see here. Live. Boom, 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 boom. I am live. Ba, ba, ba. What's up, everyone? You got that red book?
Yeah.
I'm gonna need that. All right, everyone. Let's get started. This is a Patreon episode, Freemasons Podcast. We are going to be talking about, it's backwards, that's all right, Commemorative Order of St. Thomas of Acon of the United States of America. So I am a member of the Order of St. Thomas. It's a pending body. It's actually invite only to become part of the Order of St. Thomas, and it branches off of Knights Templar of the York Rite. And when you become one, this right here so I don't get stabbed. But this is the emblem of the order right here. You also on top of that you get a little pin as well. And again, the different colors of the pin of the clamshell denote whether or not you're a grand officer of that body. But we'll get started right here. And just give you guys a little heads up. The Commemorative Order of St. Thomas of Acon is an independent British Christian Masonic organization Membership is restricted to those who are subscribing members of the Preceptory Commandery in amity with the Great Priory of the United Religious, Military, and Masonic Order of the Temple of England and Wales in provinces overseas, commonly referred to as the Knights Templar. Membership is by invitation only. The basic organization of the order is a chapel. So rather than a lodge, rather than a chapter, it's called a chapel. That's how it goes. Its foundation, the Order of St. Thomas of Acon, was established in 1974 as a result of 20 years research in the Guildhall Library in London by John E. N. Walker, who for many years was the Secretary General of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia. The ancient records of the order, written in medieval French and Latin, have been deposited in the London Guildhall Library and escaped the Great Fire of 1666. The order now operates under the official title of the Commemorative Order of St. Thomas of Acon. This is fairly not too prevalent in the United States, but I'll just read a little bit of it, the preamble of the book. And it says that we have a revival of this very English order of chivalry is due to the untiring efforts of our first Grand Master, Sir John of Dorking, the late John Walker, who was Secretary General for the SRIA, which I just covered. John spent more than 20 years in searching the archives of the Guildhall, looking for information. In former times, we could read and write so that memories were better developed than ours. Pythagoras forbade all writing, considering it the destroyer of all memory. Fortunately, most people were more tolerant. It was not necessary to the record what was to be spoken, nor to give more than heads or orders in the events. Such clues as have survived require imaginative interpretation. Good stories, on the other hand, such as those of Becket, father and son, were written down for use as homilies by priests. So I'm just going to get into a little bit of the history of it and what it all represents. The Third Crusade began in 1189 AD, and on the 8th of June, 1191, King Richard Coeur de Lion arrived with his forces before the seaport of Acre and captured the city in 5 weeks. That's where the name Acon comes from, is actually Acre, same thing. Amongst the English forces was one, William, the chaplain of the Dean of St. Paul's, who, when he saw the corpses of the Christians about the walls of Acre, had compassion on them. With the aid of a few helpers, he buried a large number of the dead and tended the wounded. Seeing that his actions were being appreciated, William formed an order for the express purposes of burying Christian knights who fell at the battle in the Holy Land. To his first purpose, he added a second, the raising of monies to redeem the ransom captives captured by the Saracens. So that's pretty much what this order got started for. The order being formed at Acre, and its name was incorporated in the title, the angelicized version of Acre being Acon. The order was so successful that William was able to build a church and a churchyard in which he dedicated to St. Thomas of Becket. Thus, the order became entitled the Order of St. Thomas of Acon. Though disease and death of the other knights fighting in the Holy Land, this order of English monks was pressed into service as replacements and became the Order of Military Monks. It was also at this time, circa 1279, that the prior lost his preeminent position, this being accorded to the master, fighting alongside the Knights of the Temple, the Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Almsgiver, and the Knights of the Hospital of Lazarus, and the Teutonic Knights of the Hospital of St. Mary. King Richard I rewarded their valor, according them the status of the Order of Chivalry. Of all the first noble orders of knights in the Holy Land at this time, only this order had purely English foundation, a fact of which should be justly proud. So this is primarily an English order. In England, the order acquired the property of Becket family in Cheapside, where they built a chapel in its headquarters. Following the Battle of Acre, the Order of St. Thomas of Acon merged temporarily with the Order of the Temple. So they were part of the Order of the Temple, which is where, in modern times, it is a offshoot or an honorary position, much similar to the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite. This is primarily a invite only, of the Knights Templar. In England, the order acquired property. Excuse me. Let me try again here. When the Knights were subsequently driven out of Cyprus, the chapel of the Order of St. Thomas was the only church on the island permitted to ring its bells. Remains of this church can still be visited. Old records are sparse. And the last admission into the order being recorded on the 2nd of February, 1367, but that the order continued is not in doubt, as the records of the installation of Master in 1510 mentioned above demonstrate it was listed as one of the orders dissolved by Henry VIII. Wonderful guy he was. At the dissolution of the monasteries in 1538, he offered the chapel of the order for sale, and in memory of St. Thomas, Thomas of Becket, being canonized barely 2 years after his death during the Lantern period in 1173, in the view of the association of his father Gilbert with their trade, and the worshipful company of mercers purchased it. The chapel in Cheapside was destroyed in the Great Fire of London, and the present Mercer's Hall and chapel were built on the site. So that gives you a little bit of heads up as to what it is. And basically, the officers of the chapel, we'll go through this real quick, is you have the worthy master, eminent prior, marshal, treasurer, secretary, deputy marshal, almoner, the working knights, 4 of them, herald, organist, doorkeeper, cellarers, up to 6, and a sentry. The cool thing about this order is you actually lose your name, so to speak. For instance, I would be in any other body, Sir Knight George Mudry, or I'd be, Right Worshipful Brother George Mudry. In this one, you actually pick a surname. So my surname in the Order of St. Thomas of Acon is actually Sir George of Normandy. And how I picked that name was quite simple. My mother is, I believe, to be Italian. And again, I did a 23andMe or whatever you want to call it. And it turns out that I'm not even a lick of Italian, not at all. My mother actually was English Scandinavian, which is funny because her last name is Perfetti, which derives from the name Parfait, which means perfect, and it actually Scandinavian. So it was Norman. It was a Norman name. So that's where I got Sir George of Normandy is on that end. The clamshell for the most part is in description of being that Acre, and most of them were on the sea. That's where this comes from. So this is what you get, and it's one of the only orders in Templary that, or even in Templary, I guess you could say, is that where you actually your uniform is actually that of a Crusader Knight, where you wear the white mantle and you wear the sword, and you also wear the cross across your chest. And this sits right in the middle of the cross. It's by invite only. It's usually open only for past commanders of a commandery, although I'm not 100% sure on that. And one of the other orders that we do here in Connecticut is actually the Knights Crusader of the Cross. And this is actually similar to a past master degree for any type of knight that is going to be a commander. And here in Connecticut, we do this order. It's Knight Crusader of the Cross, and it's a very short past master degree. I'm an officer of that body as well, and it's done actually at our Grand Commandery meetings. And you go into a room, and I don't want to get into the deep specifics of it, but it's it's Christian, of course, and you take I guess what you can say would be a form of communion almost, where you're reasserting your knightly honor as a Knight Templar. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Interestingly enough, also in addition to St. Thomas of Acon, is before we actually do the order, we have a dinner, and there are toasts, much like a table lodge, but a little different. There's a Latin, I guess you could say, is a Latin benediction prior to the dinner, and it's Benedictus Benetat per Jesum Christum Dominum Nostrum. Amen. And they do a couple of these. The toasts that they do is very similar to a table lunch, and we actually sing during after dinner. One of our songs is actually "Onward, Christian Soldiers." Though a secretive degree, it's not entirely secret. It's set up a little bit different than a Masonic lodge, but it's an interesting thing. And for those who are interested in the Knights Templar, if you get a chance to be offered to do this, I highly recommend it. This is a very cool, and again, it's honorary. You have to be asked to do it. It's not something you can just say, "Hey, I'm doing it. I want to take this degree." It doesn't work like that. You have to be asked to do it, and I've had the privilege to be asked to do it, and I'm part of it. Again, I don't know if there's one in your state if you are interested in this, or if you're a Knight Templar, but it is definitely a nice addition to the Order of the Temple and Commandery in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, gave you a little bit more about it. If you guys are more interested in it, I can get a little bit more in depth about it. But I think that's pretty much just giving you guys a little bit of an insight as to what the Commemorative Order of St. Thomas of Acon of the United States is. So I'm going to end this live stream, and I want you guys to all have a good day. Thank you, Patreons, for all your support, and we appreciate it. We really do. We'll be able to improve on a lot more of our technology. As you can see, we're getting better and better every day. Now I'm on YouTube Live, where this actually is only going to be for Patreon, and we're going to be improving on a lot more. So it's because of you guys, and we're going to start doing more and more of this for you guys. So enjoy, and have a good night. Done.